Hey, everybody, what's going on? This is your man, Big B, Brian Hanley. Welcome to Steelers Almighty Playoff Scouting Report edition, man. Look, everything, it centers on this football game. We're in the playoffs. We backed in. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. We backed into the playoffs with 4 straight losses. Didn't look good in doing so in any of the games. However, it's a new season. That's the way we have to look at this. It is an absolute new season. They have an opportunity here to shock a lot of people because nobody expects the Steelers to win. Everybody has the Steelers as the worst team that is in the playoffs in the National Football League. They don't expect us to go to Baltimore and win. Matter of fact, a lot of people think that it's going to be a blowout. So we're going to get into all of that, go through all the matchups, and see exactly where the Steelers fit in this matchup against the Baltimore Ravens. So, but before we do, remember everybody, like, follow, subscribe, continue to get in those comments like you guys have, and also hit the notification bell so you know exactly when Steelers Almighty content comes out. Also, the memberships are open. You're going to get a link that's in the comments section. Also, on the front page at Steelers Almighty, you can also hit the join button to become a member. I have several different levels for you guys to join with a lot of content on there. So look forward to seeing you guys on the membership side. So let's get into this, man. Steelers are playing the Ravens. Super familiar with them. In my opinion, I think it's the best team that the Steelers could have played, not necessarily from a personnel standpoint, but from a familiarity standpoint. The scout or the preparation for the Ravens is a lot easier, not because they're not as good of a team, but because we know them so well. We know what they want to do. We know their personnel. We're familiar with how things work. Heck, we're probably even going to stay in the same hotel that we always stayed in. We just stayed there, a month ago, 3 weeks ago? So this is not unfamiliar territory for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And while I will admit playing the Texans is a hell of a lot easier because they're not near as good as the Ravens, there might be some psychological stuff that go along with playing the Ravens too. Because again, we have beat them 8 out of the last 10 times. And I know they just whipped us a couple weeks ago, but the Steelers have a little bit of a psychological edge because again, all the pressure is on them. It's going to be 28 at kickoff, pretty cold. It's going to be a little bit breezy. It's not going to be a good track. I mean, it's snowing all over the country, for crying out loud. So I don't think it's going to be snowing during the game, but it's going to snow leading up to that. Snow, sleet, rain. It's going to be a muddy track. So not going to be great conditions there in Baltimore. The Ravens are favored by 9.5 points. The over-under is 43.5. 9.5 is usually a ton of points in the National Football League, but in a playoff game, I mean, it might as well be a million. That's how little respect that the Steelers are getting at this point in time in the season or in this playoff game. 9.5 points that they are receiving over the Baltimore Ravens. Ugly, ugly, ugly. So here's the next thing. The personnel. Look, we know the Ravens. Lamar Jackson, this might be, and you guys get in the comments if you disagree, but this might be the best season from a guy that doesn't win an MVP. Because I don't think they're going to give it to Lamar Jackson. I've gone over the reasons why. I think voter fatigue is a thing. I think he probably deserves it over Josh Allen, but there's a lot of people that said that Lamar maybe didn't deserve it last year. Okay, fine. We don't need to get into that. But over 4,100 yards, 41 touchdowns, and only 4 interceptions, and you throw in another 900 yards rushing, that's a pretty damn good season. I don't care who, when, what. I mean, that's incredible. Incredible what Lamar Jackson did this year. Throw Derrick Henry on top of that. He had over 1,900 yards rushing and 16 touchdowns. I mean, it's insane what this offense did this year. Now, I would put in here Zay Flowers, but we'll get into that a little bit later. But as far as their third offensive weapon for this particular game, I'm going with Mark Andrews, 69 catches, 676 or 73 yards, 11 touchdowns. I think he is the guy that the Steelers, outside of Derrick Henry, I think they got to focus their attention on likely, but more importantly, on Mark Andrews. I think they got to stop those two. If they can do that, the Steelers got a real chance. And again, that is after you stop the run. After you stop the run. On defense, A lot of people, and myself included, I think Kyle Hamilton is the key to the Ravens. He's absolutely the key. He's got 107 tackles, 4 tackles for loss. They made a switch to him to safety. He's been moving all over the place. I think Kyle Hamilton is the key. Now, don't get me wrong. Roquan Smith is incredible. 154 tackles this year. The man is a tackling machine. He's incredible. But what makes that defense go is having Kyle Hamilton back there at the safety spot to be able to move him all around. This is going to make Steeler fans pissed off, and it actually makes me pissed off to say it, but it is true. He kind of does what Troy Polamalu, kind of all over the field. They move him all around. He kind of plays in that mold. Now, I'm not saying that he's Troy. Don't get me wrong. I'm not even coming remotely close to saying that. But he plays in that mold. And we're lying to ourselves if we don't say that Kyle Hamilton is a really good football player. Is he Troy? Hell no. Not even in the same class as of this point in time. But that doesn't mean he's not a good football player. And it also doesn't mean that they don't use him kind of the same way that we used to use Troy, because they do. Kyle Van Noy, as far as outside linebacker, look, he whipped this last game. We've got to be able to neutralize. He's 12 and a half sacks. Look, Dan Moore didn't have a good game last game. Broderick didn't play particularly well against the Ravens. Broderick says he wants to play against the Ravens. I'm for it. I am absolutely for it. So this is what you wanted. This is what you get. Guys, you got to go out and make it happen. Go out and make it happen. This is what you get. Van Noy is very good at getting after the quarterback. If the Steelers are going to win the game, they're going to have to throw it, and you got to be able to neutralize this guy. Look, free agency, we don't need to go a ton over this, but we know the big free agent signing for them was Derrick Henry. Look, how good were the Ravens last year, and then how much better are the Ravens this year on offense by signing Derrick Henry? It's night and day difference. He's absolutely, what he did for that offense is incredible. He helped Lamar get the numbers that Lamar was getting. Yes, absolutely. It's just crazy when you think about it, because they were a very good offense last year. It's incredible this year and what they have done. As far as, again, their top rookies, Nate Wiggins has come into the starting lineup as a corner. He was the 30th pick overall. Played pretty well this season, if I don't say so myself. Played pretty well. And then Roger Rosengarten, starting offensive tackle. They drafted him this past year, number 62 overall. He's gone in, become the starter at right tackle, and he's played really good football. Kind of solidified that position for the Ravens because it was a little shaky, and he has solidified it. Now, let's get to the injuries, man. This is where the Steelers – and I don't know that there's necessarily an advantage when guys are in or out, but the Steelers are getting healthy. Number one, Dante Jackson practiced in full. He's going to be back for this football game. He said, I'm ready to go. He's back. Mason McCormick. Now, that's the one. Limited in practice. He's got a broken hand. He's got a huge cast on. I would say if I had to answer this question right today, I would say Mason McCormick probably isn't going to start. I think he'll be available, but I don't think he's going to start, which Spencer Anderson, I just don't know. I do know. Spencer Anderson is not as good as McCormick. That's why they made the switch. That'll be problematic if he's got to go in and play. But hopefully he can rise to the occasion. Mikael Pruitt didn't practice on Wednesday, did on Thursday. So it looks like he might be a go. Then Boswell and Hayward were both sick. Hayward was back at practice. Boswell wasn't, but the Steelers didn't sign a kicker or anything like that. So I feel like both of them are going to play. But the best kicker in football, if he's under the weather a little bit, let him be under the weather, stay at home, get him healthy for the game. As far as the Ravens are concerned, I mean, not having Zay Flowers is out for this game. They've announced it. Not having him available to play in this football game is huge for both sides, because if the Steelers go to, you know what, we're going to put JPJ on Bateman and say, okay, Peyton Wilson and Patrick Queen, you got to cover the tight ends. Or better yet, if we go with Mika Fitzpatrick, you got to cover the tight end. One of you guys got to do it. Okay. and then you still bring down Deshaun Elliott to stop the run, that might be the key for the Steelers to win. So Zay Flowers not being out there, number one, is horrible because you don't want anybody to get hurt and be hurt. But that's an advantage for the Steelers. It just is, because Zay Flowers he's a Pro Bowler this year, a very good second-year wide receiver, and him not being out there, that helps the Steelers. Unfortunate way for it to be, but football injuries are part of the game, man. As far as the matchups are concerned, look, I've mentioned this. We know them, they know us, but let's break this down. The Steelers' rushing defense, it's 6 now. 98.7 yards a game, but over the last 3, we've given up 119 yards a game. Steelers haven't been great against the run. For them to win this football game, they got to get back to what they were the first part of the year, basically the first 10 games of this season, stopping the run. Do what you did to Baltimore the first time you played them. And yeah, I know Baltimore went away from the run game early. We'll make them do it again. Stop the run. If you can do that, you got a chance. If you don't, the Steelers will not win. Matter of fact, they're going to get blown out. If they allow what they have allowed the last time they allowed over 220 yards rushing, they do that again, they're getting blown out in this football game. I'm just telling you right now. If you can hold them to under 100, you can win. But you cannot let them get out the gate and let Derrick Henry run all over you. Look, the rushing offense, it is rolling. There's no question about it. It's first in the National Football League, 187 yards a game. But over the last 3, they've run for 230 yards. So it's a challenge. It's a challenge. But if we want to win, you got to stop it. It's just that simple. Stop the run to give yourself a chance. If you don't, you get blown out. Period. End of story. As far as the Steelers' strength against the Baltimore weakness, I mentioned this the last time we played. It's the kicking game. Now, I know you would think that's weird with Justin Tucker, but Boswell's been much better than Justin Tucker has this year. I mean, Boswell has 41 field goals. He's at 93% as far as field goals. Justin Tucker's at 73. For 50-plus yard field goals, Boswell is 13 for 15. Justin Tucker, 6 of 11. Steelers have an advantage there. Even if the game's on the road, even in bad weather, we have an advantage. Now, Justin Tucker, he can pull it all together, and he has been pretty good over the last 4 or 5 games, but Boswell has been the better kicker. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about that. That's not up for debate. I'm not saying Boswell is the best of all time or that Tucker isn't, but this season, Boswell has been the much better kicker, and it's not up for a debate. It just isn't. The Steelers have a big advantage there. As far as weakness, look, the Steelers' pass defense, it's been getting torched pretty much from about the middle of the season on. You might even be able to go a little bit further than that, but it is 25th in the league, 228 a game, 254 over the last 3. And we got helped out by some numbers last week against Cincinnati. We actually held them down a little bit more than what they had been going for. As bad as it was a lower number, if you can believe it. But that's something that's going to have to happen. You can't just let Lamar Jackson go berserk either if you're going to win this game. The Ravens' passing offense, it's good. 7th in the league, 237 a game. Now, only 198 yards over the last 3. But that number is really misconceiving because I just told you they've been running the ball for 238 yards a game. So don't let the 198 fool you like they've just been playing bad football, throwing the football. That's not the case. They've just been running it down people's throat. And if you're going to do that, we don't have to throw for a whole bunch of yards. And that's where the difference is. So what I think, the Steelers got to make them one-dimensional. Stop the run, make them throw it. But it's not that they can't throw it. They just haven't had to. But that is a matchup that the Steelers, they've struggled all year. They got to make it work. They got to be able to find a way to make this work. So let's go to the outcome here, people. Look, the game again is in Baltimore. Coaching. I want to give the advantage to Mike Tomlin. He's got 7 North titles. John Harbaugh's got 5. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to say this one is a toss-up because I don't think either one really has the advantage over the other. I don't believe that. So in this particular matchup, I'm going to say this is a toss-up. You might say, Big B, that's the easy way out. I get it. I understand that. But if we're being realistic and we're being honest, this is about as close of a coaching matchup right now that I can think of, Harbaugh and Mike Tomlin. As far as the history, look, the Steelers own the series. And if you even want to say recent history, they've won 8 of the last 10 games. However, the last time that they matched up, the game was in Baltimore, and Baltimore whipped us 34-17. I mean, they whipped us. They did. They physically beat up the Pittsburgh Steelers. We had opportunities, and we just didn't take advantage of them. It was disappointing to say the least. Now, as far as rosters go, I don't think there's anybody out there that you go man for man for man, and you go down the roster that anybody's going to say the Steelers have a better roster than the Ravens. They don't. They absolutely don't. The Ravens own the advantage as far as the roster. As far as matchups, you can look at it again, and you could say, look, here's an opportunity for the Steelers to take advantage of this, take advantage of that. But with the totality of everything, the Ravens own the advantage as far as rosters go or as far as matchups go. They just do. They own that. So when it comes to the outcome of the football game, I picked the Steelers basically. I've been a homer, and I've picked them to win every game this year. I'm going to go against my heart, and I'm going to go with my head, and I'm going to say the Ravens win 37-17, that we get whipped. We get physically whipped. Now, you might say, come on, Big B, you don't know what you're talking about. There ain't no way. And you know what? I would love to be wrong because you all, if anything, I'm honest. And I will tell you exactly if I'm right, wrong, exactly how I feel. Unfortunately, this is how I feel. It's tough for me to see that a Steelers can turn it around after the way that we backed in, limped into the playoffs, playing bad football. Now, if anybody can turn it around, it's the Steelers because you're playing it again against a team that you're familiar. Also, there's bulletin board material. The Ravens were caught on tape talking about a cologne, that Lamar Jackson cologne, that George Pickens, that it smelled soft like George Pickens, basically saying that he's super soft. George Pickens had to hear that. Everybody else heard it. We know he heard it. That's got to mean something. At some point, you got to have some pride and just say, hey, man, throw me the football. If you got to throw it to me 15 times, throw it to me 15 times, and I'm going to make these guys pay. That's the kind of George Pickens we want to see. Also, John Harbaugh just assumed the victory. Came out in the press conference and said, hey, yeah, we're not going to have Zay Flowers. He can't go this week, but he'll be right back and ready to start up next week for us. He said that. That's not made up. That's not AI generated. That is literally what he said because that is the Ravens' mindset. Yeah, we got to play the Steelers this week, but Zay, he's not going to play this week. He'll play next week, though. Don't worry about it. We'll have him ready to go. They've already assumed the victory. Like the game isn't going to be close. I'm not picking the game to be close. But the Steelers have to have a different type of mindset. The Steelers have to go into this saying, number one, we know the Ravens. We understand what they're going to try to do. We have to stop it. But they also have to stop us. Go on the attack. Be aggressive on offense. All this conservative talk and conservative playing, enough, Steelers, enough. You have nothing to lose in this game. You don't. And I know I'm a person that says, well, you always have something to lose. You can lose the game. There's no pressure on Pittsburgh. Nobody's expecting them to win. Nobody's even expecting the game to be close. So play loose. Play free. Put some game pressure on the Ravens. Because if you do, and you put some real game pressure on them, how are they going to react? What are they going to do? They've heard it all along. Unless we get to the Super Bowl, the season is a failure. That's the whole mindset. Unless we get to the Super Bowl, it means nothing. Hell, you could even say if they didn't win a Super Bowl, then none of it means anything. Well, that's real pressure. And if the Steelers can apply some of that pressure, some real in-game pressure in the playoffs, how will they react? Again, the Steelers have beat them 8 out of the last 10 times. That means something. Does that start to creep in their mind if the game is tight, the middle of the third quarter, the middle of the fourth quarter? Do certain parts of the Ravens' body start to pucker up because the game is close? I don't know. All I know is if the Steelers apply that kind of pressure, I'm going to be interested to find out. That's what I know. And I think the Steelers actually have the mindset and the people to be able to pull that off. Now, will they do it? Will we get the kind of offensive aggressive play calling that we need? Will that happen? Will we get a defensive effort that says we're going to make you one dimensional? You're not running the football today. Are we going to get that kind of effort? Are we going to make plays? Are our playmakers on offense going to make plays? Are we going to get that? Are we going to be special on special teams? Are we going to get that? And are we going to be able to create and take advantage of turnovers? If we can do those things, the Steelers can win. And yeah, that might sound like a lot, but it's going to take a lot. It just is. The Ravens are more talented than the Steelers. There's no denying that. So to be able to beat a team in the playoffs on the road that's more talented than you, it's going to take some things to happen. Luck is also going to be one of those things. Will the football gods be on the Steelers side? I don't know. We'll see. But hopefully all of that will happen and we'll end up in a Pittsburgh Steelers victory. So I appreciate you guys taking the time. I'm looking forward to the game. Make sure you guys show up 45 minutes before game time. We'll be live right here talking, getting pumped for this game. And then 15 minutes afterwards, we'll be live. Again, it'll be late, but we'll all be up. Saturday night, what else you doing? Grab you a drink. Let's jump on in, Steelers Almighty. We'll talk about exactly what happened. So appreciate you guys. Love you guys. And aloha.